Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Fantastic Four issue 40. And this was a pretty good issue. Even though I did not read the one shot, this did a good job of catching up and making sure that nothing really much was missed with that. Like, we do get some kind of exposition dump, if you will. But it's not done in a bad way because the beginning of this issue pretty much gets us into the major players of what's going on with the whole Reckoning War while still moving things forward into what's kind of happening as we see what's kind of going on in the rest of the issue. So we start off and we pretty much see that Wrath of the Reckoning is kind of giving us the lowdown how they were pretty much sectioned off. They had been given the fire from the Watchers to do with as they deemed fit, and they deemed fit to wage war and pretty much go breaking shit like ain't nobody's business. And of course the Watchers didn't like that and stepped in to kind of resolve things, but then of course went with the whole Watcher oath of never interfering again. Kind of similar to like the Prime Directive and stuff like Star Trek. Well, he's pretty much doing it on this planet, Obscura Minor, where they pretty much wiped out the Reckoning, wiped out all of the rest of the inhabitants, and he's pretty much monologuing to Quire, the Silent Watcher. And he's pretty much like, yeah, we did all this, and you stood back and watched this burn as we see him kill Quire, the Watcher, which shows us how big of a threat level this is. You don't... Anything that's got the ability to kind of like take out a Watcher like that, that's pretty big. And... let's see, nobody would rival them, so they're like doing what they're doing. And an interesting kind of turn of phrase is he was talking about like returning to the reality in which his brothers and sister in arms. So it seems like there's more of a kind of like hierarchy effect going on with what's going on, that there's other kind of players within the Reckoning's game. But we've only got like some other brothers, unspecified number, but then like one sister. So we'll see how that kind of like pans out and shakes out. Then we see that we're in back to Earth, and we see that there's like a Badoon invasion going on, and Reed is linked up, and we get the information that he absorbed all the information from Uatu's device, which that's a big thing for a human to kind of deal with. I mean, Nick Fury is okay at this point, but there's probably other Nick Fury Sr. extenuating circumstances for why he was able to he might not have gotten all the information, you know what I mean? Whereas Reed is like acting kind of weirder. He's like very methodical and very tactical and a very objective base for what he's kind of doing. We see him going in, he's trying to figure out what's going on. They're like, hey, there's an alien invasion going on. He's like, yeah, I kind of seen a lot of other stuff, so we kind of have to like prioritize. Let's see. Well, evidently also one of the moon got blown up. The moon's gone, and it's like, Val's like, shouldn't we kind of like fix that? And I'm like, yes, that should be fixed. And the thing is, it's even kind of crazier because there are bigger problems going into effect than not having a moon. That in and of itself is like a planet fucking event. So when we've got all this other kind of stuff, we're like, what the hell's going on? Let's see. And we see that Alicia's like, what the... Somebody else is there? And then, of course, Dick Fury's like, yeah, I've been pretty much making myself invisible, so sorry I haven't been turning it off. We see that he grabs Alicia's device that she pretty much used to communicate with the Silver Surfer, and he's trying to kind of like mutter with it and everything. We see that he's shaved his beard, and everybody's kind of like, what the fuck is going on with him right now? He's freaking everybody out. He even switches their suits back to the kind of classic designs, so that way it would have like a calming effect on everyone. So then we see that Reed then goes into tactical kind of mode and starts to help out with the whole Badoon invasion, pretty much helping Tony with certain things, getting Captain America to give his shield to Vance Astrovic, who I'm not that well versed with, but evidently the Badoon have some kind of prophecy that he'll rise up, a psychologically deep-rooted psychological fear that this dude with Cap's shield would rise up to defeat them, so it gets into that. He then tries to get She-Hulk and Jack of Hearts to come to the Baxter Building and kind of deal with what's going on. Of course, we also see that Moon Knight is not taking very well to the whole thing that the moon is gone. But Reed is still able to like get to him and be like, hey, avenge the moon, go do that stuff. Like, Khonshu is like the god of vengeance. You're his champion. Go wreck some shit. And then he like gets into it. I'm like, huh. Reed is very effective, but it's like, dude, these people are having a lot of problems and stuff. And we see that everybody is getting really freaked out. Now, granted, they're showing that Reed is not working out well, and then people being like, this is not cool. What's going on? And he's like, I see all these problems and everything. Johnny's like, listen, you got all this information and everything. Why don't you cure me? And he's like, yeah, I kind of need you to be like this. Because we're going to need you for this shit. And Johnny, of course, is going fucking hambo on it. And it's kind of getting annoying to me. Now, I know Johnny is stuck in a very shitty kind of place. Alright? And I know that he does have justifiable anger and everything like that. But Johnny, there is shit going down. Granted, Reed's not putting at it and communicating it to the best kind of level. But you are kind of like the amped up version who could probably utilize your powers on a far more vast kind of field and a bigger kind of power level than you usually can be. So Reed's saying that I'm going to need you this powered up, even if it's not in the best way possible. I mean, granted, I understand that you want to switch it on and off. But the thing is, Reed's working on a tight time schedule, evidently. So then we see that the Silver Surfer kind of pops up and be like, hey, we kind of have to talk to some shit. But then we switch over to Doom pretty much looking at stuff and finds one of the things that the Cormorant was kind of like dealing with. We see that like there's these guards in these like big ass suits, but Doom is just like, fuck you guys. And finds out that one of the other boxes that the Cormorant was trying to go for, even though it was shielded, was like temporally put so that it was out of sync for the timeline for like 1 second. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And that Doom is using it for bait for something. It's like, alright, what the... I don't mind it, it just kind of seemed out of place, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck's Doom doing? And I'm only saying it's like out of place in that, like, okay, I do like what's going on with Reed and everything, but I'm like, can I have a little bit more of what Doom's doing? So, we see that Silver Surfer's like, okay, the Reckoning is pretty much instigating a kind of all-out war kind of tactic and putting conflagration points everywhere. So, they're pretty much doing this, and it's kind of affecting the whole kind of fabric of reality, eternity, and all that kind of shit. And it's like, okay, they're trying to engulf the universe in flames. It's like, yeah, this is kind of nuts. Of course, Reed asks him to join them, but they're like, the rest of the heralds are like assaulting Asgard to get back the body of Galactus. And Reed's like, oh, okay, fascinating. And Sue's like, but are you going to help Thor or going to help the heralds? He's like, I'm just going wherever the universe demands. It's like, alright, we'll kind of have to see what's kind of going on there. And we see that they're going after the Shi'ar, the Kree-Skrull Alliance, Spire, a whole lot of shit's going down. So it's like, okay, of course, since it's going with Spire, Johnny's like, they're going after Sky, we need to go help them. But the thing is, Reed has been able to kind of figure out the pattern of their attacks and knows that Spire is just kind of like one of their deflection points. They're ones that they're pretty much using as a deceptive kind of tactic, where Reed has like pinpointed the ones that the Reckoning are actually really utilizing for their tactics. Johnny's like, fuck that noise, and blasts off. And the thing is, Reed's like, yeah, Johnny's predictable. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, he's gonna go along and do this stuff. Tries to be like, hey, Jack of Hearts, why don't you join us? And She-Hulk's like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And he's like, well, how do you say no to that? And then he just goes around pretty much like amping up people with Watcher tech because, granted, they are fighting people on Watcher kind of level technology, so they kind of have to kind of do this. And the thing is, he like pretty much amps up Sue's kind of stuff, so that way she's like the greatest kind of asset that they got. And Reed, of course, is like talking to her and saying like, listen, I can't stop thinking and not seeing what's coming. And They have a really nice moment as she pretty much goes into her invisibility mode and kind of gets into the place of what she needs to do. So they get to the Forever Gate, and they're pretty much like tactically setting people up to where they kind of need to go. They got 3 charges for the Forever Gate, and they're sending. Let's see. So they kind of split up. They send Nick Fury Sr. off to one part. Let's see here. Yeah. And then, of course, they're going to send Ben, She-Hulk, Jack, and Reed to another location. And we get a nice touching moment where they're like, okay, we're leaving Franklin and Val in charge. And they finally get that it's like, yeah, it's not a babysitting duty. They're doing what... They're putting them in charge as, like, Mom and Dad would be. And that if Earth gets taken and they go for the Forever Gate, they enact the Zero Protocol. And then, of course, we get a nice moment between Nikki and Joe and Ben and Alicia. And Ben's like, yeah, I'll be back. No worries. We see that the Watchers are taking this seriously with Uatu. We see Planet T-37X, the Watchers' homeworld, as everybody's like, God damn it, it's always Uatu. I love that. You're going up here, and we see it's like, it's always Uatu. And it's like, I thought we were dead with him. Who could keep track? It's like the other Watchers are like, okay, what the fuck's going on with this? And he's like coming to do his dire warning, like, we gotta go to war because shit's going real. It's like, alright, cool. And then we don't get any more on that. We see that our big team with She-Hulk, Reed, Ben, and Jack are at the Shi'ar space, and that, of course, you've got the Gladiator, well, the Imperial Guard being like, alright, they're a legion of super beings. Anybody that can fuck them up is pretty bad. And they are fucked up, and it is pretty bad. And we see that they've got some, they're the Morani, I believe. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry. But we see that they are like, hey, screw these guys. These were supposed to be the toughest. We kind of kicked their shit in. And they're like, are they Hulks because they're green? And we see that this is Rapture, the one being that was like killing Ben and all those kind of things. He's freaked out, and he's like, Reed, get me the fuck out of here. Reed's like, listen, all reality's at stake, and I hate to lay this on you, but my mind is melting with all this knowledge because a human brain can't handle all this Watcher stuff, and I'm going to be dead in 3 days, Ben. So we kind of all got problems right now. And it's like, for Reed having that hanging over his head and dealing with that, he's taking most of that surprisingly well. So I did like this because we got all the kind of information that really kind of needed to be done to set up what's going on with the Reckoning War. It is interesting that they're essentially going on a scorched earth kind of policy to kind of rack and destroy all of reality, but they do have certain ones that Reed was able to pinpoint out. We've got Doom doing his own thing with something that the Cormorant was going after, so we'll see what kind of bait and trap he's kind of laying for, if he's laying for the Reckoning, for the Watchers, for the Cormorant, or Doom's just fucking doing whatever Doom fucking does. Because sometimes that's what Doom does. Silver Surfer has to deal with the Heralds going on, and of course the Watchers with how they are going to enter the war and what they're going to do as well. And to see if that kind of lines up with what Reed's doing, or if Reed has been misinterpreting the kind of knowledge that is now melting his brain, because if it's melting his brain, that could lead to like him not being able to accurately parse out and analyze that information that he's got, and could make mistakes that could be detrimental to him and his goals, or the Watchers and their goals. So there is a lot. This is a dense motherfucker. There's a lot of shit going on, and I think it's interwoven pretty well. Except for Doom's, it's just like, I'm Doom, and I'm like, I can't really fault it for that, because it's a very kind of Doom way to do. Like, if you ever see a thing, it's like, I'm Doom, and then he does whatever he does, and if he wants to fuck off, he will. Like, it's kind of interesting like that. But yeah, I kind of liked how they were able to kind of lay all these out. It's like, okay, so we've got this, this, and this. We'll see how this kind of like incorporates into the overall story and where this is kind of going. Like, I didn't expect Rapture to kind of been brought up and from the whole thing with the Griever and Ben reliving that kind of death over and over again. We'll see if that kind of helps him out potentially. If going through all those deaths were able to kind of unintentionally prepare him for fighting this Rapture lady. So we'll see how all that all kind of goes out. I'm like, all right, this is a pretty good way to kind of start this off, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.